Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first Advocate Q&A video series. So my name is Maddi Niebanck, and I'm SameU's digital campaign coordinator, as well as a brain injury survivor myself. So my brain injury occurred from a viral brain infection called encephalitis nearly 6 years ago. Fair to say that my recovery hasn't been straightforward, like many of us, in that I experienced, some of the gaps in the system during my ongoing brain injury recovery. So a little bit about SameU. SameU was co-founded by Emilia Clarke, who experienced 2 brain aneurysm during the filming of Game of Thrones, and also co-founded by her mom, Jenny Clarke. So one of SameU's purpose is really for brain injury survivor to feel like they haven't lost the person that they were before. So the charity works to develop better recovery treatment for survivors. And since our inception 4 years ago, SameU's delivered practical help and improvement in terms of brain injury recovery by working with teams all around the world. We've recently launched the 33 Steps to Brain Injury Recovery Challenge to raise awareness around the fact that 1 in 3 people, or 33% of the population, which is always a number that, takes people back because they don't think that, as many as 33% of the population goes on to experience a brain injury in their lifetime. So the challenge covers 3 areas that we feel need to be considered throughout recovery, which are the brain, the body, and the spirit. So as part of the 33 Steps to Brain Injury Recovery campaign, we welcome Maddi Niebanck here, who has kindly accepted to relate a snippet of her experience with brain injury and of how the whole person needs to be considered, during recovery. So I feel I've probably talked enough now. So with no further ado, Maddi, I'd love for you to share a snapshot, really, of your story, of your brain injury story.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, Veronique, for having me on this video series. My name is Maddi Niebanck. Like was already said, I'm a brain injury survivor as well. I'm a stroke survivor. So 6 years ago, I just graduated from university, and I went in for a scheduled brain surgery because I had what is called an arteriovenous malformation, which is essentially a tangle of abnormal blood vessels in my brain. I knew that I had this AVM, they call it for short. I knew I had that because I'd always been getting very bad, debilitating migraines from a young age. And I learned that, one, I was lucky to know that I had this AVM. And since I did know, the question then became what to do about it. I was told that with each year of life is an increased chance of the AVM bleeding and rupturing, with a 50% chance of it rupturing at some point in my life, and if it did rupture, a 10% chance of death. I did not like those odds, so I ultimately decided I was going to go in for brain surgery once I finished my education. So I graduated from college in May of 2017. 10 days later, I went into New York Presbyterian Hospital for my scheduled brain surgery. Unfortunately, one of the preoperative procedures that they had to do caused a blood clot in my brain, which burst, causing me to have massive stroke in the hospital, and I'm rushed into an emergency brain surgery. So I guess thankfully I was at the hospital when this happened. The doctors weren't even sure if I was going to come out of it alive or if they would be able to successfully stop it or not. But I was very lucky in that they were. When I woke up from this surgery, I was completely paralyzed on the left side of my body. So that's kind of where my whole rehabilitation journey began, in my recovery journey, waking up completely paralyzed on the left side, my arm, my hand, my leg. I could not sit up on my own without assistance. I couldn't speak or swallow on my own. Like, I've had to learn how to do everything. And it's been a long journey but I've also come a very long way, which is what I have to remind myself.
Yeah. So that was 6 years ago as well?
Yes. Yeah, basically a little over 6 years ago.
Yeah. How long were you in hospital for, Maddi?
I was in the hospital for 15 days, where the only thing I learned how to do when I was in the hospital was sit up in a wheelchair. And then I went to inpatient subacute rehab for 5 weeks. So I lived at the rehab center for 5 weeks. I learned how to walk with a cane. When I was discharged from the inpatient, I began a rigorous outpatient at least 3 days a week of physical, occupational, speech, and cognitive therapy. So very intense. Now I can walk. I learned how to walk with a cane there, and then eventually without a cane. I wear a mobility device on my leg to help because I have foot drop. My arm is a little bit slower at recovery, but it is coming along and making progress. And then the cognitive and speech, I don't do that anymore. I did write 2 books since I had this stroke, and that was kind of like the most practical way for me to engage in cognitive therapy while doing something that was like important to me personally.
Oh, cool. Oh, well, nice segue here, because I was going to ask you, I was going to say that you're actually an author as well. And in one of the book, you talk about, making adjustment, how, we need to push forward or move forward, I guess, when we want to give up, because it's not easy. Brain injury recovery, about sharing our stories, celebrating those little wins, and learning how to live life, after a brain injury. So I was wondering if you could share with us a few tips that you felt were helpful during your own recovery with us.
Right, definitely. So I think for me, the biggest shift I saw in my recovery began with my mindset. I learned very early on, I was feeling sorry for myself. Of course, having thoughts of, why did this happen to me? This sucks. I shouldn't be going through this. But it soon became abundantly clear to me that I wasn't just going to wake up one day and be better and recovered from this brain injury. The only way that I was going to get better was if I myself put in the work and, did the therapy and the rehab that was recommended to me. And then, we would see how I was able to recover if I put in the work. But it did all start with my mindset. And once I turned my mindset around and realizing to embrace trying to be more positive, I have this saying that one of my friends told me in the early stages of my recovery, and it has come to define every decision that I make, and that is, obstacles are opportunities. I say it all the time now because it's a great reminder to myself that, and it's true, obstacles are opportunities, and I have decided that I'm going to make this obstacle, having a stroke, living with brain injury, into an opportunity for myself to open up a new path for me in my career, in my own just personal life, in being able to live independently and do things on my own. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. But to live independently again. And I realized that it all just began with me having the right mindset and viewing this obstacle as an opportunity. How can I use this bad thing that happened to me to empower myself and other people and show others that it is possible to have life after brain injury? We can recover. We can find ways to still enjoy life.
Yeah, I think that's pretty remarkable, because not everyone would have that wisdom at a younger age, to tackle those obstacles in the way that you've mentioned. So yeah, credit's all yours, really. When we talk with brain injury survivors or people in the brain injury community, we often hear or describe brain injury recovery as a roller coaster. I guess, how do you manage to stay positive with those ups and downs? And I'm also wondering, is there anything or things that you do on a daily basis that help keep you on track, you know?
Definitely. So I guess, start by saying every day is different. And you're right. It is a roller coaster. Like some days it's a lot easy, like it's more natural and easy for me to stay positive and like view like everything in my life as good and positive. And other days, you know, you feel a little more down or maybe something bad happens and then it just ruins your whole mood. But I do have certain strategies I try that I find help me. One of them being, I realize that the stories that we tell ourselves, especially when we're recovering from brain injury, is so powerful and has so much like impact. So I decided that I was going to tell myself positive things about my life. So every morning, the very first thing I say to myself is, today is a beautiful day to be alive. That's like my saying that I just, every morning is the first thing I tell myself. And it does, in fact, reminds myself that today is a beautiful day to be alive. I almost died with the emergency brain surgery when I had the stroke. Like in many ways, like I shouldn't be here. So every day that I do wake up is a blessing in and of itself. And so that is always a great way for me to start off my day. If I find myself falling into like a more negative spiral, I do a lot. I like to meditate. I find that daily meditations have a huge positive impact on my mood. I'll usually do a meditation like in the evening when I'm about to go to bed. And then sometimes I'll just do them periodically throughout the day. And I find that helps. Also, going for a walk. Walking is my favorite activity. And I find that even just getting outside for a couple minutes, maybe walking around a little bit, has massive impact on improving my mood. I'm much happier.
Yeah, exercise, moving the blood in our body. Yeah, it does work wonder. I agree. Nature is probably one of my favorite way as well to get rid of all the clutter that sometimes, that anyone experience. But I guess when you tackle health issues, sometimes it's got a different levels on a different level from everyone else. What I found is that obviously each stage of brain injury recovery, presents its own challenges. So I guess in terms of where you're at the moment, could you please give us examples of what are some of your current challenges in ways that you try to mitigate them in order, to keep that positive mindset and to keep wanting to move forward and have the best outcome?
Yeah, so I think biggest challenges that I face are on top of just having had this stroke. Like I lost a lot of vision in the left side of both of my eyes. So learning how to adjust to the lack of vision and the lack of just spatial awareness that I used to just automatically have, that's been a big adjustment. I'm very lucky in that I would say cognitively and my speech and my memory, like all of that came back quite easily for me. The bigger challenge is like on the physical front with my left arm. And so I do exercises every day that kind of helps me to keep my the tone that I have in my arm in check, and also to help me to work to improve on having more function in my arm. So I'm always trying to do exercises to help with that, or even just something as simple as like a weight bearing technique and pushing weight through my hand to like give it that feedback. Things like that, because I think the biggest challenge, in my opinion, that I'm facing that there is a fix to is the mobility and having more function in my hands. So outside of work, I do try to work on that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Again, I follow you on social media, and you often put videos on how you work actually on, that mobility aspect. And I think it's always very inspiring. And it is not easy, and you work hard. We can see from the outside anyway, looking in, is that you work actually really, really hard at it. So,
it takes a lot of work.
Yeah. But it's worth doing it, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, and one thing that I've definitely learned is that, unfortunately, recovery from brain injury is not just going to happen overnight. As much as we would like it to, and I wish that there was an easy fix, like oftentimes it does take months, years, a lifetime even. And every person's journey is different, but it's definitely something that is worth putting in the work and fighting for and helping to better. It all helps to better ourselves.
Yeah, it's about setting goals, small goals, and then when you achieve them, you look for the next goal. So it's a work in progress for sure. Yeah,
exactly. It's kind of like moment by moment, day by day. You might not see the progress, but over time you do. And that's why I like to take a lot of videos to document like how I do certain activities in one moment, because when I get discouraged, it's something I can look back on and say, oh, look, remember when you couldn't even open your hand at all, and now look at you, you can pick up little items or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, awesome. So I guess that I want to try to keep this relatively short, but I've got one last question, and it is, and I feel an important one. So anyway, here's the question. So why is advocating for better brain injury rehab important to you?
It's important to me on a personal level, obviously, because I have had brain injury and I've had to do with the rehab. So I'm personally working to get better at like all these activities. But one thing that I've realized through advocating for myself and then also sharing my own journey and my story on social media and just in my book and everything is that me sharing my journey opens up the door for other people to realize like, oh, look, I didn't realize this was possible. Like I get people mentioned to me all the time, like, oh, like seeing you break down these barriers and show that it's possible to recover, to travel, to live and do things again, like shows me that it's possible, that I can do it, that there is a path forward, even if it's different from what we thought it was. Like there is a way to blaze a path forward. And so I think it's important, yes, for me, but also I see the impact that advocacy is having on others in this stroke community, in the disability community, the brain injury community. And I want to continue to contribute and be a part of that because it's so important. And like we said, it all starts with mindset. And one way to enhance a mindset is through community building and having this network of same you, of other organizations that do work in the brain injury and disability space. I think it's just so important and has a massive impact.
Yeah, I really like what you're saying because my experience has been is that I found brain injury to be very isolating. But when you start, telling your story, talking to other people who have lived similar experience, so they might have, different problems that remain, but there's that almost that common understanding that we understand what the others are.
We're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone. And you get that understanding that you don't find anywhere else, even if you have an awesome support net. I think, sometimes unless you've actually lived something, it is really, really hard to relate. So yeah, I very much agree with that aspect of why it's important to raising awareness.
Showing that you're not alone, that there are others going through it too, and that we're all here to support and help each other because you never know what might work. Or
1 in 3.
Exactly, 1 in 3.
And the stats are there, so it's the chances of someone experiencing, whether it's a concussion, a mild traumatic brain injury, or any of the acquired brain injury is pretty high over the course of a lifetime. So yeah, that's important to do that groundwork. Cool. Thank you so much. So on this note, I guess I want to thank everyone who will be watching this and to thank you for listening in. If you haven't joined the 33 Steps to Brain Injury Recovery Challenge yet, and you would like to do so, there's a number of ways that you can get involved really. So some of the supporters, for example, are reading 33 pages of a book daily. Others are focusing on their nutrition. Others have decided to walk 33 minutes daily. And some people have decided to explore practices that they're not super familiar with, such as mindfulness, yoga, meditation, or journaling, just to open that side of things in terms of recovery. And then you have others that do a mix of all of the above, really. So there's no right or wrong way to complete the challenge. The main aim is to get curious, to explore, different ways for the whole person to heal from a brain injury recovery. And as I've mentioned earlier as well, to raise awareness around the fact that 1 in 3 people will be or is susceptible to experience a brain injury at some point in their life. So if you'd like to join the challenge, you'll find all the details on our website, sameu.org. And Maddi, on behalf of the whole SameU team, I'd like to say a huge thank you for sharing this time with us and for providing, I know it's a very small insight of your whole experience with brain injury, but it's an important one. We got to start somewhere, don't we?
Exactly.
So I'm very looking forward to collaborating some more with you in the future. And in case people aren't following you, Maddi, can you please let them know what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
So I'm on Instagram. My name, I guess you can put it on this video, is at Maddi Stroke of Luck. And that's Maddi is Maddi, Stroke of Luck. So I'm quite active on there and always love to connect with people through Instagram. You can even reach out to me via email from my page. That's usually the most reliable way to get in touch with me. But I would always love to connect, always looking to meet other brain injury survivors and just people. So yeah, definitely would love to connect with anyone here.